Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Communicate Great podcast. I am your host, Traci Poe, with the company Communicate Great, where we teach you how to level up your communication. And we have guest Heidi with us today, and I'm so excited to have Heidi here. Heidi and I chatted, I don't know how many weeks ago,
Maybe about a month ago.
maybe about a month ago, and she is just so full of look at the word behind her, joy. Like Heidi is about joy, and I absolutely love that. I am an encourager, a cheerleader. Yes, you can do this person, and we just fit. We absolutely fit. So I wanted to bring Heidi on and let her just share who she is, what she does, and then obviously Communicate Great, give us some communication tips. So Heidi, I'm going to kick it to you. Tell our audience who you are and what you do.
Thank you. First, thank you, Traci, for having me on. It is just like a joy. It is a joy and delight, I guess, pun intended. I am Heidi Esther, Joyologist, and a lot of people are like, "What is that?" So I help women who take care of the world and other helpers who are ready to be done with the survival mode and the managing mode, and are ready to really embrace what being like living in the thrive zone is all about. And I like to call it creating our joyfully ever after every day.
Mm,
And so just getting to
I
this
like that.
place where it's not like devoid of the hard stuff,
Mm,
and it's alongside it and acknowledging it and learning from it and feeling grateful for it. And then just, being gratefully present, kind of like, I call it like Winnie the Pooh. We're just, eating our honey pots, going to our thinking spot, hanging out and,
I love it.
hanging out with our little piglets and all that kind of good stuff.
I
So
love it. Yay.
yeah.
Okay. Well, do you want to share how you came to doing what you're doing? Do you have a story on what brought you here?
Sure. Yeah. So about 15 years ago, I I would call myself a perfectionistic mommy doormat. So
Mm.
no toy was left unrotated, no baseboard was left unclean, and even the baby clothes were ironed. I know, so much extra time. And I woke up to the realization that I was in an unsafe marriage,
Mm. Mm.
and I didn't know what to do. All of my
Yeah.
let's fix this, let's smooth it over, let's make everything fine again and get back to our two kids, picket house, rocking
Mm-hmm.
chairs when we're retired, happily ever after. And the more that I tried to avoid this growing reality, the worse that it got.
Mm.
And so then ensued what I like to call my decade in life's fun house. So you could think about it like lots of different lessons kind of all rolled into one big ball of a decade, including like divorce and
Mm.
depression, a couple rounds of unemployment, as well as a midlife awakening.
Mm.
And now, Traci, I know that you are a cheerleader and you really resonate with that word encourager. I always thought I was a cheerleader and like a helper. And
Mm.
so it was such a weird time for me because I felt like life kind of kept like smacking me upside the head, saying like, pay
Mm.
attention to what's going on in front of you and stop trying to help everybody else. Like I was doing
Wow.
all this volunteering. I
Mm.
call myself like the midnight volunteer. Like, oh, let's clean the house, get everybody ready for bed, and then after bed, let's like dedicate our next hours to volunteering for the community. And
Mm.
so that being in that space of like my life kind of smacked me upside the head was like, pay attention and you got to figure this out before you can go back and pour into the community.
Mm.
And so I learned, I mean, I would say like I was stumbling and I was kind of just this hot mess who was like I figured out like how to have some friends, and sometimes we do like drunken karaoke, and then sometimes I learned I started after that I would my friends would like text me the next day, be like, Heidi, that was amazing, thank you so much. And I was like, oh, did I dance funny or something? Like, was I doing the funky chicken? What's going on? And they would send me back a poem that I had written. And I come from a very science and math, logic, bootstrap, do it all yourself, figure it out, be perfect, of course, kind of family. And so like that outlet was just coming like out of me saying like need to process feelings. Like I didn't know that's what it was, but
Right.
I was like, oh, I guess. And before I really had like a vocabulary for feelings, I guess it came out as metaphors in poetry. And so I came out of this decade, and it was actually February of 2020, and so I was laid off for the second time, and then the pandemic hit, and then in the heart of that first horrible shutdown, when everyone was like going to the store every day to like scrape up the bottom of the barrel, like, oh, pinto beans, let's get 3 cases of pinto. So during that time, I realized like that I could find joy every day. And I was like, everyone's in my house is miserable. My like kids are using all of my utensils, and my introverted wife like hates us all being around, and like it's just like all this horror. Like we don't know if the world's gonna end, and like I'm like, oh my God, I'm living my best life right now. And so then I got this call. I would call it a spiritual call to share my story. And then I just kind of started writing. I started writing. It turned into a blog. It turned into a book, which turned into keynotes, which turned into what I call joy coaching. I'm an emotional intelligence certified life coach.
Right.
And as I am walking forward, I can see the thousands of steps, missteps, all that took for me to go from perfectionistic mommy doormat to woman who can thrive amidst the pandemic, unknown, all the fire in the water. And so I see it in these 5, I call it the 5 principles of goldfish leadership, because if we don't practice them, we forget.
Okay. I like it.
And so those are the tenets. The tenets are taking responsibility, not for everything else, because we're really good at that, but taking responsibility for our happiness and ourselves. So that's living, so we can live by our values. The second is resilience. So resilient for everyone else, but not giving up on ourselves in that dream in our heart. The third one is support, which is also very hard, because we're all taught to do all the things and be the dependable friend and not depend on anyone else. So asking for support and finding like those authentic, nurturing relationships. So imperative to us being able to share our stories. The fourth is emotional intelligence. So some people say, oh, feelings. Why is feelings got to be in there? Well, I have this affirmation that I say that pretty much sums it up. I feel and I know.
Wow.
So just being able to sit with our feelings and like be a compassionate witness to them, and letting them do whatever they gotta do in all of their messy, then we are gifted with that knowledge and perspective of like, oh, I was so sad because I really loved doing that. Or so it gives us a perspective and that knowledge, and it develops our intuition. And so having that piece in place. I used to be someone who couldn't, like, if there was a family gathering, I would have a meltdown trying to pick an outfit. I'd be like, I don't know. I'm like, they want me to wear this, and like this, they say this color's good, but I don't know. What about ruffles? And I was like, but now I'm just like, oh, I can like intuitive be like, this is how I feel today. And I just pick out clothes that feel very congruent with me. And so
I like that.
To be shiny in the shiny sunny zone. I do have a pretty big wardrobe of black, even though it's not one of my colors. I have my colors done. It's like a whole thing, but charcoal is, so I feel like that's close.
It's close.
Totally.
It's a very dark charcoal.
Yes. So it's like, it's the little brother to black. That's what I figure. So I feel like I'm still in the fam. It's all good.
There you go.
It's all good. Yeah. In the the fifth tenet of goldfish leadership is self-wisdom. And so being able to kind of, I walk with women through this process called peeling their onion.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had gotten early into my divorce, someone actually had to tell me that I might be gay.
Mm-hmm.
And I had never actually thought about it before. And it pretty much threw my whole life upside down. Um, I went through like depression and shame over it because I was like, growing up in my smart family, it was like, how can I not know something so essential about myself?
Mm-hmm.
I was like, okay, so that was that was a lesson. And so then I was like, what else don't I know? What is it? What's in there? Is it important? Or like, so I just kind of went on this like journey of just like, what else is going on inside? Or like personality test, sure, I'll take this whatever and see if that
Mm-hmm.
resonates with me. And
Mm-hmm.
so I walk with women and we go through some different personality tests, and
Mm-hmm.
some people are very resistant to
Mm-hmm.
doing different kinds of personality tests because they're like, I don't want to be put in any of these boxes. But in the reality is, it's like they just open a door for us and they say, like, is
Right.
there something here for you?
Mm-hmm.
And
100%. Yeah.
yeah, and then if there is, if it resonates, like, can you accept it? And so that's what peeling your onions about I call it loving ourselves into the light, all the layers,
Mm-hmm.
stinky and not stinky, all the
Mm-hmm.
blooming layers of our
Mm-hmm.
onion.
Mm-hmm. I love it. There's so much wisdom to what you said. First of all, the goldfish thing, you have to practice it or you forget it because that is totally me. But
Me too.
there's there's so much wisdom in talking about knowing yourself. And I know that I think you and I talked about the community that I'm putting out, the Know Thyself. I think you're going to come on as one of our guest experts. I believe I asked you to.
Yes.
So, but the whole point of that community is to grow to understand yourself, because if you don't know who you are, if you don't know where your strengths are, where you need to grow, if you don't understand about you, how do you grow? How do you change as a person without understanding where change might need to happen? Or you might, you talk about being where you are, and that's to me kind of the same thing, because if we're understanding, well, I'll give you an example. So, grew up in church and heard all the time, well, if you don't know what your spiritual gift is, basically you're going to waste your life, right? And I got so freaked out over, what is my spiritual gift? I don't want to miss what God wants me to do. And I would take test after test after test. And they all came back and I'm like, oh, okay, so I'm this, I'm that, I'm this, and that. But nothing really resonated. And then one day I thought, why don't I ask God what he gave me? There's a thought.
Ah.
So I said, okay, Lord, what is my spiritual gift? Immediately, exhortation. I'm like, what? What? None of those said exhortation. And I was speaking with one of my friends. And so exhortation is building each other up, encouraging others, speaking the truth, right? So that's how I'm wired. And once I got that, it was like light bulbs went off. And I was talking to one of my friends and I said something about it. She was like, you didn't know? Like, everybody knows. And I'm like, I didn't know. So that is the whole point of Know Thyself, is to take the assessments, learn about things, see who we are. And once we know who we are, in addition to what do I need to tweak, it's also about, wow, that now it makes sense.
Yeah.
So
Oh my
I
gosh,
like
Traci,
that.
I love that. I love that story so much. And you like, cuz it's like, oh, we grow up and we try to look outside of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You were taking all the assessments and all the tests, right? You just
Mm-hmm.
like trying to figure it out, and then once you were like, all right, I'm going to sit in some stillness.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
it came through
Mm-hmm.
God to you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And some
Yeah.
people call that a divine connection, some people call it intuition, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so just like developing that channel from which we can receive that abundance and love and that wisdom and the insight we're supposed to have to
Mm-hmm.
help us on our way. The angels are
Yes. Yeah.
Angels are with us.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So now that we've talked about that, I want you, because we're communicate great, so I know you have nuggets for communication. So give us your tips on communication. What do you have?
Yes. So I am very big at I identify as a connector.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm someone who naturally invites people into conversation and
Mm-hmm.
creates safe spaces. And one of the most brilliant things that I have been gifted with by God, the universe, is the ability to sit and see people as they authentically are.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm able to
Mm-hmm.
kind of just move to the side of me
Mm-hmm.
and being able to hold that
Mm-hmm.
space. And so
Wow.
I see all of the struggle in the brilliance.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have a few tips that are around creating that environment, um, so that we can connect more deeply with each other and
I love it.
authentically
I love it.
with each other. So all right. So in this is gonna sound odd, but the the first tip I have is know what your values are. And
Mm-hmm.
so when we are walking in our values, we are not, I think our values are kind of like our compass. And I think we're born with two compasses, like two big compasses on our wrist. One is like everybody else's values that are pointing the way. That's usually very, very large because it's like
Mm-hmm.
our family and our community and,
Mm-hmm.
our faith community and all these other places. And then
Mm-hmm.
we have our little one that,
Mm-hmm.
and unless we're taught to like listen to it, we just let the other one kind of run the show.
Mm-hmm.
And so by being able to know what our values are, I work with women on this all the time, and it's more than just like picking out 5 words from like a group of 200. So like say someone values leadership.
Mm-hmm.
So one person could be like, I view the values kind of like a string, and so it's
Mm-hmm.
there could be like leadership, like power, influence, impact. My value around leadership is like leadership, mama bear, and
Mm-hmm.
like empathy, right? And
Mm-hmm.
friend. And
Mm-hmm.
so, right. And so knowing that's how I am so congruent inside, it allows me to walk in my authentic truth and
Mm-hmm.
not be concerned about um, what other people need, or what they're like, if they're going to be disappointed in me or what they're expecting. I just walk in my truth, and I just kind of surrender to the journey in that way. So the first tip, I know that sounds kind of random, for a communication tip. um
No, because there's communicating with yourself, intrapersonal. And so this is one of those.
mhm,
Sorry. So yeah, no, makes sense.
yeah. So the second one is, so this will be an extra personal, is I call it, seek to understand and then be understood. And so when I was growing up, my parents would always say, like, or I saw this quote a lot, like, you never know what's going on unless you walk the mile in somebody's moccasins. And I know that
Mm-hmm.
has some cultural charge with it right now. So
Mm-hmm.
I say seek to understand and then be understood.
Mm-hmm.
And so just being able to like lovingly embrace where we're at and put ourselves to the side, and opening that space to be a non-judgmental, compassionate witness
Mm-hmm.
allows other people's authenticity and what is really going on to come out.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so just being able to have that connection piece, say what needs to be said. Um, and so really just being able to kind of clear the board of like any things that might be inhibiting you from connecting with
Mm-hmm.
someone.
Mm-hmm.
And so
I like it.
yeah. And then I have one more tip, which is actually
Okay.
four tips in one. And so that's why I stopped at 3.
Okay.
So this one comes with a little story.
Okay.
So in 2016,
Mm-hmm.
I was let go by my employer. Now I had a pristine record, and it was just like I came from this perfectionistic family, and so it was really very devastating. I like threw myself into like
Mm-hmm.
a find your amazing career course, and so I was like doing like different personality assessments, or I was doing all
Mm-hmm.
this personal work to try to like unearth
Mm-hmm.
like what went wrong, because I made all, like, I was in fundraising, I was like, I made all the connections, I made all my numbers, like what happened.
Mm-hmm.
um and I walked through I walked through some things there, and someone had mentioned this book to me, and I was open. I was just open to do whatever I had to do so I could get plugged back into the fundraising matrix. Like it was just very painful to I kind of had branded myself with a scarlet letter, and so that was
Mm-hmm.
I was it was a rough summer, I remember. Um and this book was Don Miguel Ruiz's Four Agreements. I don't know if you have read it.
Mm-mm.
Um,
No.
so I read it. It's a short read, but it's somewhat philosophical. And it talks about four agreements that we make with ourselves
Mm-hmm.
to find personal freedom.
Hmm. Okay.
And so I read this book. I'll tell you what they are. I read this book and I said, all right, I'm going to adopt these agreements starting today. And
Okay.
so I have pretty much held my true course. So I'm going on year 8 here.
Nice.
So I am like a forever student of Mr. Don Miguel Ruiz.
Okay.
He was like some corporate person in some big company, and then he kind of had like a midlife awakening, and he went
Hmm.
back to sit at the feet of his grandfather, who was a Native American shaman. And he learned these
Mm.
agreements from him, and so he
Okay.
felt called to share them with us. And so I'm forever
I
grateful for
love
him.
it.
And so the first one is, which I think is hard because of the way that, especially women, we are brought up, is called be impeccable with your word.
Okay.
And so this goes both ways. So this goes with yourself and with other people. And
Hmm.
so no more talking crap.
Mm.
And so it kind of like
Love it.
moves us out of the judgy zone. I have in a lot of the workshops and keynotes that I give, I have this exercise called practice shoes. And we all get out our coloring pencils and we color in our own shoes, and we say, all right, we're going to pretend to put these on every
Okay.
day. And there's no more judgment for doing things right and wrong, and no more talking negative to ourselves in the head. We can say, like,
Mm-hmm.
all right, this didn't work, go to this expectation, so we're going to
Mm-hmm.
feel our feelings, and then we're going to try our best next time.
Mm-hmm.
And so that kind of like released me. I had been in a lot of different fundraising environments that were very, very female dominated.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like the predominant culture, I would say, would be
Mm.
like everyone's kind of watching what everyone else is doing and talking about them behind their backs. And I
Mm.
always felt like, when I remember when I used to go to work, like I would have this knot in my stomach,
Mm.
and I'd be like, oh, work really stresses me out. But work didn't stress me out. Work did not go with my values.
Mm.
So it's not living according to my values of
Mm-hmm.
like having this high standards of integrity and being able
Mm-hmm.
to meet people where they're at and pour into them.
Mm. I
And
love that.
so, yeah. And so really, once we are able to remove that dynamic that we are always looking and scanning and judging, there's this great book by Michael Port called Steal the Show, and he's an actor, and he's basically talking to how non-actors can become better speakers. And I remember one of his first in the first chapters, he said, all right, this is the deal. You can be the judge of your life, or you can be the creator of your life.
Mm.
You can't be both.
Wow. Yeah. That's good.
And so we can either, so that was a moment. So saying, like, I can judge other people, or I can work on creating the change and the impact and the
Mm-hmm.
healing
Mm-hmm.
that I was meant to do here. But I'm not going to be able to do both, because let's face it, like, if we're the judge, we're going to continue to be the judge inside. We're just going to
Mm-hmm.
be all in our business, and we're going to be too afraid to take those steps forward, to take all those risks, right? Creators and
Mm-hmm.
artists take risks.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And if you're having a big judge, you're not getting very far.
Right.
You're lugging like a 5 million ton garbage bag full of
Yes. Yeah.
criticism with you.
Yeah. That negativity,
Yeah.
man, that's a showstopper right there. The
Yeah.
negativity.
Literally. Yeah. Yeah. That was a real dynamic changer. Yeah. And
Mm,
the other night actually, it was a real full circle moment. When I was laid off right before the pandemic, um I bumped into my old boss for the first time in 4 years. And
mm,
so this was one of those environments that was very unaligned with my values. And I
mm,
remember just going up to her, and like I had this conversation, and I just embraced her in my positivity and love and like acceptance of where she was at. She definitely looked like she's an introvert in a big extroverted like situation. And so
mm,
yeah, I sent her some love, and I felt like definitely not aligned. All right. It's good.
mm,
But, it's like I met her in my values zone, and I did not get that pit in my stomach saying, oh, here she is. We're going to talk about something that I don't want to.
mm,
Instead, I stayed according to my compass, my values. And so that felt
mm.
so good. So
Oh,
good.
good. Good, good,
Yeah.
good.
Yay.
All right. Did you get to all four?
Okay, so I'll do the so 2, 3, and 4. I look over
Okay.
here because I have a giant. I'm looking to the side. I have a giant, like 2 by 4 foot poster of the four agreements right by my chair where I do my reflective journaling. So the second one is don't take anything personally, and so this is a
Mm-hmm.
really good one also for like when we are holding space and being with other people,
Mm-hmm.
that we stay in their zone
Mm-hmm.
versus looking at their experience and seeing what it means for us and if we're offended.
Mm-hmm.
And so just letting that go, saying like everyone has their own experience, everyone has their own hard times. And
Mm-hmm.
so just by being in that space and choosing to say like what is their experience has nothing to do with me, even if they're saying stuff about me. It has to do with more like maybe they had a bad day, maybe they've had a
Mm-hmm.
bad decade.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
People so easily become offended, right? And it's something I work on, and I still become offended. There's the book called Unoffendable. I don't know. I think that's
Ooh,
what it's called.
I love
Unoffendable.
that.
I think it's Brett Hansen or Brent Hansen. Something. It's been years since I read it, but anyhow, so that's really good. It's really going a lot with what you say. And then I do a workshop on feedback, giving and receiving feedback.
Ooh, so
And one of
good.
the things is when you receive feedback, if you perceive it as negative, rather than seeing it that way, see it as neutral, right? Try to look at it as a fact, right?
Oh,
So
I love
those
that. I
kind
love
of
that.
go exactly with what you're saying.
That's so good. And putting that in, just putting it in a bucket, like, all right, this is information, and I'm gonna use it, or
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna choose to use it or not, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm
Mm-hmm.
not gonna let it affect, like,
Mm-hmm.
because working on our taking care of ourselves and cultivating that
Mm-hmm.
I think like honoring ourselves. I think
Mm-hmm.
the big goals, like once I got to self love, and it was like this whole journey from like self-loathing to self-love, and then I was like, oh, I can't feel better than this. But I once I got to this place where I honored where I was at,
Mm-hmm.
and like I was my own like a fierce mama bear advocate for myself and my values. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, oh, this is like what believing in ourselves feels like.
Mm-hmm.
So just getting to that place.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. I love that. All right, so I'll do the next. So the third one is hard. Was probably the hardest one for me because I grew up in a house where we didn't talk directly to one another. So
Mm-hmm.
everything was um, it was just like I don't know. So the third agreement is don't make assumptions.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so and then there's a whole adage like if you assume something, you're making an ass out of you and me.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so by calling it out, being brave, you have to be really, really, like I felt like I had to be so brave to to be able to say what was going on in my head. Like there was a big wall there for me to scale, and now there is no wall. But just having that freedom to say, like, when you said this, did you mean this? And I felt a little hurt, right? And so opening the door to just all of those different feelings and having those brave conversations. Because if we don't, we're locking up all of this extra energy, and emotions take a lot of energy, and they suck all this energy of we're just like pushing them down and pushing them down and pushing them down. So that's a big liberator. That was probably my biggest liberator. And the last one is always do your best. And so this one really helped me move from a perfectionistic mindset to someone who is just trying new things. And when I'm sick, my best is different than when I'm well.
Right. Giving yourself grace and mercy.
I love that combo. Yeah.
Those are good. I like those. I might have to get me one of those big posters. And it's so much of what you were talking about. It's like, oh, well, I do a workshop on that in my head. Oh, I did a podcast. I mean, it's like, it's all about helping us in a way to communicate with ourselves, but then to be able to be the better version of ourselves, right? Because we're getting healthy. And therefore, those conversations can change with all the people in your life because you're coming at it from a different standpoint of, again, becoming healthy. Yeah. And so often we grow up with those toxic traits that we have to figure out are there to work those toxic traits out and just come at things from a different perspective. So I
making the new agreements.
Yeah, definitely like what you shared. So, okay. All right. So before we close out, I want to ask you, do you have any other tips? Do you have an offer? What other things do you want to say before we end?
First, Traci, I've loved every minute of this and being able to come here and share some wisdom and be in your beautiful, brilliant cheerleading presence. It has been an honor.
Thank you for coming with you.
And I do have, when we talked about the Goldfish Leadership System, there are five specific agreements that we make with ourselves that aren't true, that keep us from developing this responsibility for our happiness and the resilience and support and emotional intelligence and self-wisdom. And I have a handout that will debunk all the lies so you can get to the truth that is your joy your thrive zone. And so it's at HeidiEsther.com/truth.
And we can put that in the description as well. So we'll put that. I'll probably grab those books that you mentioned so I can leave a link to the books that you talked about as well. Any other resources you want to leave, we can put in the description with that link. So
yeah, I could put my book in the link too.
Yes, you should.
My little that was at the start of my perfectionistic mommy doormat meltdown period. So
what is it? What is the title?
For Crying Out Loud.
I love it. That is so clever. I like it.
Where I learned to process feelings, amongst other things.
That's great. I love it. Well, I'm with you. I just appreciate you coming on and taking the time to spend with us and just to share your heart. I was talking to my husband a little bit before we got on. I was like, she's so positive and encouraging. And so
thank you.
Anyhow, I just appreciate that you are a joyologist. So I love it. Okay. Heidi, thanks so much. And everybody, we will put her information in the description. Please reach out to her and take advantage of her freebie that she's got for us. So we will see everybody next time. Bye.